All right, y'all. What's happening? What's happening? We back with another episode of Fight Court. I'm your boy, Dean Thomas, joined alongside me, my co-host for today, the mighty Quinn, Ryan Quinn. And what we witnessed over the weekend was Dricus Du Plessis retaining his title, becoming the king of Africa. Okay, let's not get into the racial stuff. Let's just say, all right, Dricus Du Plessis beat Israel Adesanya. There were a lot to talk about. There was a lot to talk about in regards to this fight. So, Ryan, let's get right into it, man. What did you see?
You know, I thought Izzy was going to take this fight. I thought that stylistically, I thought that he was going to give Dricus fits, even though Dricus does have a good job, which is ultimately how he dropped him, with moving his head with his punches on the way in. Now, the one thing that I noticed about Dricus is he doesn't seem like a particularly fast person, like fast twitch reflexes. However, if you go and watch the finishing sequence from right hand to body lock to takedown to back control, he has an awareness that's crazy quick that he just gets it in. I can't put my finger on it. I don't think it's really fight IQ, or maybe it comes out as fight IQ, but just his way to go from one thing to the next is exceptionally quick. And that's probably the biggest fits that he gives with people. If you go back and watch his fights, even how he knocked out Whitaker when he moved his head. Now, I think a fighter like Sean Strickland would probably give him fits because he has a really nice jab. He's tricky in his own right. But just the way he's able to move within and chain things together, it's tough to deal with.
Well, I'll tell you right now, that is 100% fight IQ. That's not fight IQ. And this is something that I've been preaching since the fight, is that we have to know what we're looking at. And everybody's been calling Dricus' style ugly, it's effective, blah, 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 blah. It's true. His style is very effective. It's very ugly because what we're looking at are really good tactics. Dricus is a very good tactician, very good tactically, very powerful, strong, tactical, with a tremendous amount of will and determination and durability. His technique is a bit sloppy, but he gets away with that. And the reason why you can get away with sloppy technique in MMA is because the human body is pretty weak. You know, if you hit somebody on the chin at the right spot, you're going to go. The lights are going to go out. Like, our bodies aren't generally designed to be taking a bunch of punishment. So you don't have to do things 100% correct in order for them to have an effect.
But let me interrupt you real quick. Would you say that he has that pinpoint accuracy, like they always talked, like Anderson Silva had? If you look at some of his knockouts, they're pretty clean. I don't have an answer one way or the other. I didn't think of it till you just said that.
I mean, he doesn't have pinpoint accuracy, but it's pretty accurate. Like, he doesn't have to throw it properly if he hits you on the chin, and he's strong enough to where an arm punch is going to hurt. Now, this is what I'm saying. Like, an arm punch from a strong weight female is not going to hurt like an arm punch from a guy like Dricus or Francis Ngannou. Like, they're just bigger and stronger. But a good technical punch from a female is going to hurt you if she hits you in the right spot. Like, it doesn't matter who throws it. If they hit you in the right spot and do it properly, it's going to hurt you. But when you're bigger and stronger, you can compensate for a lack of technique. And Dricus does that because he's got the willpower and the durability to get away with doing a lot of those different things. Like, he can, and we also have to understand too, that just because some techniques look ugly because he's a bit stiff and he's not a graceful guy, doesn't mean that all of his techniques are wrong, right? You know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely,
yeah. So, and we tend to do that. We tend to overgeneralize every fighters. He's a technical fighter, so we tend to think that, oh, he's technical, so that everything he does is technical, and every technique he does is perfect. And if something doesn't work, oh, technicians, he's too technical. No, like, just because somebody's technical doesn't mean that everything they've done was the proper technique. And
two fighters that come to mind, they weren't strikers, but they were technical, but it was like blue collar technical. I guess that's the way to put it. Is Daniel Cormier and Nick Lentz. They were really good with getting in that clinch and working, whether takedown or that dirty boxing, and just uppercuts, weird angle uppercuts. That's technique that people don't realize either. And moving the head into a punch. If you want a good example, is how Cormier knocked out Stipe in their first fight. So I'm with you on that. I'm with you on that.
Well, and that's the thing too, is like when you're dealing with a guy who's really technical, and this is why like technicians tend to get caught like paralysis by analysis. Technicians, guys who consider themselves to be technicians, tend to get caught out there with nothing to do because they're not very good tacticians.
Yeah.
They don't have their tactics in order. So they're waiting for the right opportunities to be quote unquote technical and use technique. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're good tacticians because they're technical. Now, Dricus ain't waiting for shit. Like he's going to go and get his rocks off. He's going to go and perform because he knows he has a job to do. Is it 100%? Like, are his techniques 100% technical? No. But he does so much to you that he's going to be efficient. Or not efficient, but effective. He does so much to you that he's going to be effective. And he can get away with doing so much and making mistakes because he's durable enough. Like he can take the punishment for making mistakes. Most guys can't take that level of punishment.
Flipping it into what you said about paralysis by analysis and technicians not being able to apply that technique. I know we've both seen fighters that they have great jiu-jitsu, great kickboxing, really good wrestling, but they just can't put it together in an MMA fight. And it's like they have to do one of the three. They can't do it all together, which is what Dricus is able to do.
And that's what we call like those are poor tacticians. Very good technically, but poor tacticians. So Dricus has shown that you don't have to be perfect technically to still be effective. But if that's going to be your game plan, you better have a high fight IQ and be a really good tactician and be really durable as Dricus is. Now, guys are going to give him problems. I thought that, honestly, I really feel like a guy like Jared Cannonier would give him problems if Jared Cannonier. And I don't know if 40-year-old Jared Cannonier gives him problems, but I think if you were to take 38-year-old Jared Cannonier with that skill set, a guy who really sits down on his punches and will make you fall onto something and run you into a big punch, that would give Dricus problems, I feel. And that's the reason why I thought Izzy was going to dominate Dricus. Like, if you go back, like if you watch the ESPN pre-show, I did my coach's corner on what Izzy should do to win this fight. And he failed to do anything that I thought he could do in order to win the fight. And it wasn't like rocket science. It wasn't stuff that Izzy's incapable of doing. I said good counterpunching. He was ineffective with his counterpunching. You know why he was ineffective with his counterpunching? Because his defense was a liability.
Yep. I'm stuck thinking about the Jared Cannonier matchup now. Yeah, Jared definitely used to move a lot better with his footwork. I'm not saying he can't anymore, but I think the reason why Strickland was so effective is because he was able to hide behind his jab, where Jared has better boxing than Strickland, like the traditional boxing than Strickland. If he could stay behind his jab and just create some angles and then open up for those power punches, he would find success against Dricus. 5 rounds of that's a long time to do so, but we'll see. Maybe he could. I don't know. I'm kind of with you though. That's a tall ask. That's a tall order.
Well, Izzy. So back to Izzy, his defense wasn't as good as I thought it would have been. Like he was running at times. He would get himself out of position to where he couldn't counter effectively. That's why he couldn't counterpunch, because he wasn't staying in position because his defense wasn't on point. So as opposed to being able to stay in the pocket, shift off to the side, and come back with a strike, he'd go way out of position and be way too far away to deliver anything. So that's the first thing. And then I said he needed to be able to have a clean get up when he got taken down. That it was terrible. Like his grappling was very suspect.
No stand-up ability. Actually, I saw this a lot in a lot of wins on Saturday where, um, Izzy, he tends to play the perimeter,
Mm-hmm.
and which is his usual defense or his first line of defense. You can't do that against the Dricus. Somebody who can move laterally and move his head with his punches, like I was saying before. That's a tough paper route.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
Well, and that was the thing too. Is I said he needed space. He's going to need
Mhm.
space, and not only just space between him and Dricus, but between his back and the fence. Because if he plays the perimeter, Dricus put him up against the fence, and now he can operate. Now he can transition from takedown to takedown. But and I was hard on Drizzy on the post show, like on the pre-show. I was all on. I was on the Izzy train, boy. I was the conductor, whoo, on the Izzy train, boy. But when the post show came after the performance, I was like, I crashed that train into the thing. Was like, yo, get me the fuck off this thing. I was like, yo, because I hold him to a higher standard.
Mm-hmm.
He's not a regional level fighter. He's one of the best to ever do it. He's probably on everybody's consensus the second greatest middleweight of all time, next to Anderson Silva. He had a year layoff to get his shit together, and I expected more.
Is it time for him to change camps?
No, it's not time for him to change camps. I mean, I don't know if anybody can fix it. I think that at 35, with his background, so strong in kickboxing. I mean, at the end of the day, so when this fight was over, I was joking to everybody. I was like, yo, Dricus turned into Blood Diamond, right? Like he looked like Blood Diamond. But then when you think about it, after a while, fighters show us who they really are. Like the sample size becomes large enough to we now know who they really are. And I think I think Izzy has shown us who he really is. He had a great run. When he was doing his thing, it was a great run. But I think at the end of the day, when you look at his camp, how old he is, he showed us who he is. I think we've seen his ceiling, and I'm not sure we'll ever see that level of greatness again from him. That's what happens to fighters.
So is he a gatekeeper now, you think?
And I don't know if he's ever going to accept that. I think maybe he's got like one or two more where he puts himself in a position to be the holder of the key to the gate. But he seems to have a lot of pride, and I'm not sure he's going to want that position. I'm not sure he's going to be willing to accept himself as a gatekeeper. Only time will tell, and only he knows that. But for me, the one thing I do know is that we're not going to be excited for an Israel Adesanya fight thinking, man, he's going to do something cool.
I agree. I think there's some attractive fights for him that they could use as like a mid card or even like main eventing a fight night. There's some attractive middleweight fights out there, but he's gonna have to win convincingly, like 3 at least in a row. And by then, what, he's 38, 37?
Yeah, well, I think he's 35 now, which doesn't seem like a really old. I mean, but again, 35
That's now.
Yeah, that's now. But I just don't see him coming back and being great. And and I say this, and people go, "Oh, you're hating." No, I'm not hating. I know the lifespan of a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
We all went through it. We all did, which is why we're here now talking about it.
Yeah,
because we went through it, and I've seen it, and not just at that high level, but at every level. Because at every level, it's the same. It doesn't matter.
I feel like when you get older, you learn how to win with less. It's tough to do with Izzy's style of striking. It's you got to set up those money shots that he has. It's tough to win with less with that style. Like, trying to think of a good example of who won with less as they got older. Glover. Yeah, there you go.
Because Glover had a grappling oriented style.
Mm-hmm.
It was a left hook, right hand takedown, dominate you style.
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't have that style, when your style is built on flash, which requires athleticism, vision, and those physical attributes like that you require speed and timing, that stuff goes out the window. Your balance is gone, your vision, your reflexes are a little bit slower. It's out the window. That style doesn't age well.
I know personally, like when I'm doing jujitsu now, I'll see things and I used to react to those things, and it's like 3 seconds goes by before I can execute. It's by the
You
time.
you turned into Jeff Munson.
Yes, I did. I'm trying. I'm trying to turn it into Jeff
Yeah.
Munson.
Well,
I
so I
no,
mean,
it's funny you say that real quick. So like I always joke like I do like 2 moves in jujitsu now, and I'm watching this John Danaher podcast, and he's like, oh, people who limit their game or they're doing a disservice to themselves in the gym. I'm like, man, fuck this guy. I'm gonna do my 2 moves and that's it.
well, I mean, I think it's all relative. It's all the audience who he's talking to. I mean,
Yeah.
he's clearly not talking to middle-aged men, right? Because like if you think about it, like you do 2 moves more than what John Danaher does in his game.
Very true.
Right? Because he don't train. He's out on the mat every day, but he can't train because he's too broken apart. But I knew the game was weird, was different, and well evolved from anything I could comprehend when I was watching a match a few years ago between J-Rod and Wagner Rocha's son. And it was in Philly at the Cage Fury grappling thing. And I'm watching this match and I'm like, holy shit, this is just way too much for my scope. This is way too much for me. I mean, these guys they're moving in ways and doing things in ways that I just couldn't comprehend it. And again, as I've gotten older, that's the reason why I can't comprehend it. Like I couldn't even, my thought process wouldn't even go there, much less do it. So as you get older, you have to be able to minimize the movements and be more effective with them. And when you fight like Izzy, you can't do that. Who's going to be able? Who's going to be able to do that? If they can hold up like physically, they do take a lot of. Dricus will.
Yeah, because he's conventional.
His style's gonna last a little bit longer as long as he learns how. And the thing with Dricus is his defense is actually not that bad when he's on defense. Like when he's just being defensive, he's actually really good. Like he doesn't take a lot. It's just when he opens up and punches, that's when he's a liability. And that's why you have to be able to capitalize on him in that gray area. And for me, I thought that's where Izzy was going to excel because that's where he's been brilliant. When he knocked out Paul Acosta, when he knocked out Whitaker, like he's been brilliant in the gray area, just being able to see the shots and make you miss just a little bit and come back and land. But he couldn't do that with Dricus.
All right, so we're looking forward to like an Izzy Imavov in 6 months or so. What happens?
Yeah, right.
What happens next for Dricus? I know that there's talk.
Strickland.
Strickland. Yeah.
Strickland.
I know that there was some talks with him and Pereira, but I think that Strickland's the fight. I think that's the fight for sure.
Strickland's the fight. And Strickland, after watching DDP over the weekend, I'm like, yo, Strickland's the fight. And Strickland wins.
I agree.
Strickland just has to be motivated. He has to be motivated to want to win. And that's something that, it's weird because when he fought Izzy and he was like a huge underdog and he was scared and he was emotional about that. He fought his best fight.
Mm-hmm.
He looked fantastic. He was focused, walked he looked fantastic. But when he's got nothing on the line, really, it feels like, or
he looks flat.
He looks flat. Like he's got. So, I think this is up to his coaching staff. I think Eric Nixick has to really light a fire under him prior to the fight so he can really get him to perform. Because I think when Sean Strickland wants to perform, he might be the best middleweight on the planet.
Sean, do you want to bring the belt back to the United States or what?
Yeah, right. Do you want to do this for Trump?
Yeah, there you go. I'll fight in November.
Yeah, but there is something that tells me that Sean will go out and perform because he's waiting for this opportunity. It's not like he's just taking a bunch of fights and it came around. Like he's said, I'm not taking another fight. I'm fighting for the belt. And if they give him this opportunity, I have to believe that he's going to go out there and do his thing. I
Yeah,
can't.
no, I'm
Yeah,
with you.
yeah. I can't imagine him not going out there, or can't imagine him going out there and not doing his thing because he's
I
waited for this.
I actually I remember I felt that he won the other fight, but I remember thinking if they don't give him the decision, I get that too. I wasn't like him and Han. I thought he won the first fight, but it's I actually I haven't watched it since it happened. It was 8 months ago, but I was like, yeah, I could see like me. I thought Strickland won, but I was like, I wasn't complaining when he didn't get the W.
Well, I actually thought he lost. I thought, I watch fights now from a judge's perspective,
Yeah,
and I score fights based on what I think judges are going to be looking at. And I thought he lost. I thought, we, takedowns are weird in a weird space right now in MMA because before they scored them too high, and then there was a time where they didn't score them at all. And now it's kind of a weird way in which they score them. But in fights like that, I think they're gonna have some value. In fights like where it's really close on the feet, the one who shot the takedown is gonna have some value. And I know how wrestlers look at that. Wrestlers look at it as weird where he defended the takedown and he didn't get it. So give me some, but they give you you actually get 0 points for defending a takedown.
yeah.
It's 0 points and you actually get like a half a point for actually shooting the takedown.
It's almost like the takedown or the takedown defense happens. The 2 or 3 seconds after, that's whatever happens in there is what's going to score that situation.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. Like it's if somebody shoots a takedown and they don't get it, it's the body language, and what happens in the 3 seconds after.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you looking defeated because you missed a takedown, or are you coming forward? And that's something that Dricus is so good at because he's so determined. He's so
Yeah.
strong-willed. He never looks defeated. He looks bad doing shit, but he never looks defeated.
Mm-hmm.
He's scoring points with body language.
Yeah, he's shaving points off the board just by being in the fight.
Like even when there was a moment where Izzy dropped him and he turned it into a single leg. And it looked good. Like and it almost looked like he intended to do that. Like that was and I think he got Izzy down, and it looked like that was intentional. But that's just again strong will. Like DDP has that, man. He's got that strong will. Fighters can learn that from him. If learning nothing else, that's what you can learn from this man. Is it you can will yourself into some victories.
So you brought up the judges, and a judge was removed after the Rosenstruik Tai Tuivasa fight. Now, that actually happens. Not that it's common, but it happens more than the public believes. We actually posted a short on here of the head of the ABC talking about it on the Fight Court channel. How if a fighter has a judge has a bad call on a fight, and the head of the commission relieves them of their duties. I feel like the UFC, well, maybe they did, but I don't. The UFC kind of took credit for that on Saturday, or did they just let people believe?
No, there was a guy, I can't remember who it was. We heard it today on Sirius. I don't know if he worked for Australia's commission or he was from the UFC, but he kind of took credit for that. So I didn't know. So as you're telling me this, I'm trying to put two and two together. Like if he worked for the Australia's commission, but whoever he was, he certainly took credit for that. But I'm almost thinking that he was from the UFC, and he was saying something like, "Oh, it's a good checks and balances." Da 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 da. And he was almost saying as if like this was so like it was so common, and it's what's supposed and so just common sense. And I'm thinking, the way this man is talking, this shit should be happening in every show.
Well, see, that's why I think the UFC is not responsible for that. Because how many times has Dana White come on after the fight and be like, "That was horrible, that one judge," blah blah. So if the UFC had that kind of pull, they would pull these judges nonstop. That's why I think another reason why it wasn't. And also, if that's the case, that could lead to corruption. So You know, if you don't score for their boy, they're going to remove you the promotion.
That is so. You're right, man. I guess the UFC can't be responsible for this.
So, I mean, I'm willing. I'll eat crow if I'm wrong, but I think that the UFC is just letting people believe that they were responsible for removing that judge, where it was really the commission, and then the UFC was like, "Oh, people think it was us. All right, yeah." You know, like
That's probably what it was. Because the
that's
guy,
what I think it was.
whoever was talking like it was them.
Yeah, that's yeah. I like I said, like the person I spoke to about it was a commission member. So it was his call. It wasn't the promoter's call. Who knows how it works over in Australia, though? I don't know how the commission works. I don't know how many commissions they have for that matter. Maybe they give the promotion that leniency, but if that's the case, I feel like the UFC would be going there a lot more. You know, I mean, it was a horrible call. It was an absolutely horrible call, but I think that was a commission thing, and the UFC just kind of letting people believe that they took the credit for it, that they're having the credit for it.
Well, I don't have an issue with how that went down. I thought it was a good thing, and it was.
I
good
agree. I agree. It should have happened.
Yeah, it should have happened, and I'm glad they publicized it because now there's more people. The public is starting to feel like there is some accountability for.
Yes, exactly.
Judging errors. But I do feel as though it shouldn't happen on bad decisions, only on bad decisions. I feel like, and then they might even do it, but I do feel like judges should always be going over their scores and should have somebody to hold them accountable for their scores, and they should have to answer to these things. And
so this is how I always looked at that. This is my beliefs only. You know, I'm not speaking for anybody else or any commission or promotion for that matter. I feel that judges, it's impossible not to be partial or biased, depending on, especially if you had a wrestling or jiu-jitsu or striking background, you're gonna look for what you want to see. So if that's the case, all right, you know, like I remember in wrestling and wrestling tournaments and dual meets, the refs / judges that did the scoring, they would meet with us before the match, say, hey, listen, if it's a tight match and you're up by 1 and I see that you're going 30, 40 seconds and you're just backing up, I'm going to call you for stalling. That's my prep. And like everyone was like, all right, cool. You let us know. But then at least the competitors knew. So if these judges, again, according to Andy Foster and Mike Mazzulli, this too could lead to corruption. I feel like the judges should be speaking with the fighters at the weigh-ins, being like, hey, listen, in these close rounds, I'm going to be looking to see who pressed it. I'm going to be looking to see who landed those strikes late, who got the takedown when striking was. I think that they should let them know what their partial is. Now, Mike Mazzulli and I remember we kind of came to like a middle ground on this. So he started all his fights in Connecticut. He put down, it ended up being more confusing than helpful, but he sent all the fighters a format of the scoring that the judges were looking for that night at weigh-ins. So whether they go home and read it, it's whatever. But I feel like there should be a little more transparency between the judges, or at least the judges and the coaches, so the coaches can know what to do within that time, what to tell their fighter to do. But yeah, I think that there should be a little bit more there. I'm glad that there's accountability, but there needs to be a little bit more communication between what they're looking for. Now, this fight that we're talking about, not only was there no communication, there was really no reason to be scoring that fight for Tai Tuivasa 3 rounds. But I wish there was a little bit more. I'm glad that they did something. I wish there was a little more action before the reaction, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, only time will tell. The way I look at it is that we are still relatively a very new sport.
We are.
There's still a lot to learn. There's still a lot to evolve into, and as technology improves and our knowledge of the sport improves, I think all that will improve, and we'll be able to score fights a little bit more consistently and accurately. So I'm looking forward to that. But Ryan, it has been real. I thought we came down to some good points, some good hot takes.
Agreed.
Maybe the mainstream media will run with it and we'll get roasted.
Yeah, and the mainstream media. And then they like, subscribe, and share.
Yeah. So if you like the show, definitely like, subscribe, share, and comment. Let us know. And on that note, this court is adjourned.